Welcome, everybody. I'm going to read a verse to you, a very sobering verse out of Revelations 3, verse 17. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. That happens to be a scripture about the final end-time church. Well, let me tell you something. Something has gone wrong with the church, hasn't it? I believe there are some things about the church that are a sign of the end times. In the next two shows, today and next week, Doc and I are doing a show about the end time church. Now, Doc's program that we're going to do today on Doc's booklet here that I have in my hand is called The Genetic Engineering of the End Time Church. That's a big scientific description there. But it's going to make sense as we go along. I think you're going to enjoy this, so stay tuned. And welcome, Prophets in the Spotlight. Here I am, your host, Brother Dan Goodwin, as usual. Sitting with me, Dr. Charles Hiltibidal, my partner. Four-syllable word in his name, and mine's a two, so he's got a four. And Doc, Amen. We're going to do two shows in a row about the end-time church that we're living in right now.
The Laodicean world we're in.
Yes. And we just read a verse out of the Bible that is prophetic, but yet it's talking about... For 2,000 years, it was a future verse. Yeah. I'm not sure it's future anymore.
No, it's present.
It's present now.
Yes, it is.
This is us.
I'm afraid
What's
it is.
What's that old statement? We have seen the enemy, and he is us. Yeah. And it is. Yeah. You know, Doc, there's a quote, and I haven't found out who made this statement yet. There's a quote that says, the pulpit is the conscience of a nation.
Yes.
And I believe that that's true.
I think it goes maybe back 70, 80, maybe even further back, but many years ago, our pulpits began to lose their influence in societies. Yeah. And here we are today.
And I think we're putting the blame on the wrong crowd. We're blaming the world.
The world was always wicked and evil.
That's right.
It's the church that is mellowed down.
We're blaming the fact that, well, church is bad because the world's so bad around us. It's the other way around. The world is getting worse because God's people are sliding.
Yes. And it's one of the signs that is obvious that we're in the last days.
And I think it even goes further than that. I think the people are sliding because the pulpits have slid.
Oh, yes.
Now, that's not popular preaching.
No, it isn't. And hey, I've pastored many, many years in this Laodicean world, and the battles that you have to fight.
Yep.
Yes. And many of our preachers have just said it's just not worth it.
You wrote in your booklet here, somewhere along the way, something has gone wrong. That really stuck out at me, that one phrase.
Something's gone wrong, seriously wrong.
Yeah, and I think and I hate to say it, but I think if you want to go to the root of it, it goes back to our pulpits.
It does.
Who was the first person God held responsible in the Old Testament?
The shepherds.
The shepherds of the flock. Woe unto the shepherds who feedeth not the flock. Now, we're still guilty, and God made that clear. The people are still accountable for their actions.
As you pointed out in a conversation we had earlier, it's still the sheep's responsibility to eat. And then I said, but it's the shepherd's responsibility to take them to green pastures, lead them through the paths.
What do you think has happened? And we're going to get to your booklet here. What do you think has happened to our pastors, our pulpits?
Well, I think there's several reasons. I think the number one reason is peer pressure to be successful by the world's standards. The Bible standard is, moreover, it's required in a steward to be found faithful. Yep. But in the world's standards, how many did you have in church? How much money have you got accumulated in your bank accounts? how many prestigious people you have in your church. These are world standards, not biblical standards.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, Dan, most churches got themselves into financial debt, and in order to meet their payments, they couldn't afford to lose a tither.
Yeah.
So they didn't preach on sin like they maybe wanted to.
And you mentioned debts there. I think we've made the mistake of borrowing money to grow our buildings
Yes.
and our established, our look and everything.
I'm confident of it.
To where
I'm
you
confident.
can't afford to lose anybody. So, and what happens is you compromise your preaching
Yes.
because you don't want to drive anyone off.
It happens.
It's a sad state.
I'm confident that that's one of the problems.
So let's get to your booklet here. Of course, we're already basically talking about it, but your little booklet here is called The Genetic Engineering of the End Time Church. That's a strange title to most of our people out there, but it's coming from a scientific mind.
Yes, well, that's kind of where my mind works from quite often. Number one, I'm a farmer, but number two, I've been involved in creation research for 40 years. And so I can see the parallels between the altering of the DNA of the seeds in our field and the fruit tree, you name it, the garden food that we eat, all of it's been genetically modified. And in the book, I follow that premise to see how that same principle has changed the church.
So let me ask you, first of all, the question that we always ask an author: why this book and why now?
Well, I think I wrote it because I see a major problem, and I wanted to try to be able to help preachers to not follow that same path. Because there are a lot of good churches, and I'm in a lot of good churches, that have not followed down that path. And but the temptations and the pressures that are brought to bear as the closer we get to the end of the Laodicean era, the more pressure to compromise is going to be brought against our churches and our preachers. And so I wrote it, number one, to draw attention to the problem, to understand how that happened, and also kind of as a warning or an encouragement to our preachers and laymen in our churches to not let it happen to them.
Okay, Doc, there's a DVD that goes with the book.
It's a CD.
Oh, it's a CD.
CD,
okay, so
yes.
it's audio.
It's audio.
Okay, I'm glad I got that right. So what's different about the CD and the book?
Well, that's a message that I preached. First time I preached it was in a national conference of preachers and individuals, several hundred folks there. And it was a blessing, helped those people. And it's taking the principles of altering the DNA of science, and then I applied that to what's happened to the Word of God and to our churches. So it's a parallel to go with the book.
Okay, so when they order your book, just go to Prophecy and Spotlight, obviously, and you click on Doc's bookstore right on the page there. If they order this booklet, they're going to also get the CD.
Yes, it's a package deal.
Okay, and the CD is like a 45 or 50
That's
minute
it's probably close to an hour long.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you mentioned in your introduction to the book here, you said the lost world. Now this is interesting. The lost world in the mid-1900s, we're talking 1950s, 60s, exceeded most Christianity of today in their behavior.
Yes.
Now we've talked about this before, and I agree 100%. You watch some of the TV shows from the 50s. Leave It to Beaver always comes to mind. My goodness, mom and dad came to the table with a shirt and tie and a jacket on to eat dinner. The wife was the homemaker, and it was nobody was ashamed of that. They weren't embarrassed about that.
Oh no.
The man went out and earned the living, and they had a house, they had a car, it was one man's income, and it was like there wasn't much religion in the show, but yet there was morality.
And
there.
even in the more comical ones, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but Desi Arnaz and them.
Lucille Ball, yeah.
Even the bedroom scenes, they were in separate beds.
Yeah.
No, growing up in the early 50s and 60s, I graduated high school in the middle 60s, and Dan, the lost people honestly, the lost people of the era when I grew up had more modesty in how they dressed, they were more civil in their communication. If a man said what we would call even an off-color word, not even blasphemous, in the presence of a woman, he'd say, "Oh, I'm sorry." But today, even in some of our churches, the modesty, it's not there.
Yeah.
And the conduct, the conversation. So what I was trying to point out is that back there 70 years, 60 years ago, there was a level of morality, there was a level of modesty that's not even seen in many of our churches today.
You said here the dress code of the high school I attended, speaking of you, was far more conservative than that of most churches and so-called Christian schools of today.
We're talking about the public high school. I don't know how many was in my graduating class, 110, 120, I don't remember exactly. But all through high school, every girl was to wear a dress to her knees. Boys wear long breeches.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to wear collarless shirts. I mean, we had a dress standard and a moral standard, and the behavior between the boys and the girls was altogether different than it is even in our churches today.
Yeah. You made this statement, it was kind of humorous. No one thought of running around in public wearing pajamas or being seen in clothing that didn't cover up the nakedness of the body.
Hey, I'm embarrassed sometimes when I go to Walmart. I wear my pajamas. I don't even wear them outside the house to the yard.
Yeah.
But there are people. Honestly, it's embarrassing, and the nudity that is out there, the nakedness is shameful.
Yeah, and now.
But there are times, Dan, when you get in, even in the churches, or especially when you get in a bigger, when you got lots of churches come together for bigger. Sometimes I'm literally embarrassed.
Yeah.
At what I see, and it's
I think people
troubling.
haven't been taught the difference in the word nudity and nakedness.
Yes.
There's a difference.
Yes.
Nudity is always nakedness, but nakedness does not mean nudity. There's the story of Peter that I share with people in the boat, and I'm a man, and you're a man. I guarantee you, men don't get in wooden boats nude.
No.
And men don't hang around and party together or have fellowship together without clothes on. That's ridiculous.
Right.
But yet Peter was naked in that boat when Jesus was on the shore. He was not nude. He had pulled his robe around.
He pulled his robe up and tied it up.
Thighs.
His thighs were showing.
Yeah. Now,
and he was embarrassed by it because anything above the knees is called your thigh. And
now this isn't taught, and there'll be people watching us.
There'll be a lot of people. There'll be some probably already turned us off, but that's okay. Hey, it's Bible and it's right. But what I'm just trying to say is, the modern church has somehow or another become almost as bad, if not worse, than a lost world was 70, 80, 100 years ago.
And the reason the lost world has lost all morality is because the church started to lose it first.
That's right. Instead of the church having an effect on society, culture has had its effect on the church.
Yeah. And so goes the church and the home, so goes
it all
everything
goes.
Else. Yeah.
And look where we're at today.
You mentioned sports programs. We won't take a lot of time on this because I want to move on, but the sports programs have killed us.
When I was going to high school, there was no Sunday activities for anything in school.
Yeah.
And there was no Wednesday activities, because Sundays and Wednesdays belong to the church in our communities, and schools didn't have anything. Today, every day of the week, every kind of little league, every kind of a program is out there. It's unbelievable.
Do you think they also...
I've had preachers. I've had preachers whose kids weren't there because they were playing Little League on Sunday.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
Yeah. We've dropped the ball.
We've dropped it, man. We've gone the direction of
And that goes back to that statement you made back here that I keep going back to. Somewhere along the way, something has
happened.
gone wrong.
Yes.
And, the sports programs brought in the immodesty as well.
Oh, yes.
You can't swim with all them clothes on. So we made swimming clothes that are immodest, and yet we think they're normal. Well, that's okay for you swimming. Well, listen, nakedness is nakedness, whether you're swimming in a contest or running laps around a racetrack, and so that's got us, and we gave in to that.
We gave in because parents. I've had preachers say, "Well, we've changed our midweek program because so many of the kids are in sports activities and they won't be at church." That's a shame.
So there's this thing about, let's get back to your title here and let's tie this into what this book's really, this is introduction here. This is where we've come. How did we get here?
Yeah.
And you're talking about this genetic engineering. I know you're making a play on words here because you're not talking about Nephilim. You're not talking about half-breed people.
We're not talking about
angels.
That. It's the process.
The principle of it.
It's the process that ends up with that result. Yes.
Yeah, and I like how you put it here. DNA altering.
Yes.
You're not talking about physically altering.
No.
You're talking in a spiritual way.
That's right.
Altering something to change the outcome.
Yes, because on day number 3 of creation, God designed it so that he established a law. The day whenever the fruit trees are there, the grass is there, it's all there with its fruit in it. The law was established, everything after its own kind. So what we have is this law, that the DNA, which is the genetic sequence coding, the DNA in the seed is going to determine what the fruit will be. And so if you alter the coding process of the genetics, then you change what that fruit is. I love bicolored sweet corn. Man, it tastes good because it has been genetically modified to taste good to the taste buds or the palate of our mouth. Same way with most of the tomatoes. They're genetically, the seeds have been, the DNA's been altered so that it tastes good to my taste buds. And so that same principle is what has brought the church in the end time to where we are. It's simply you alter the DNA so that the fruit tastes good to the old man.
So what you're doing is you're taking a biological or physical process and you're applying
scientific process. And
you're applying it spiritually speaking.
Yes.
So we're going to get in that just a sec. So hang on to that thought, folks, because we had recently had a young couple here.
Yeah.
And they helped us with our studio. They spent a lot of hours here.
They were great.
They did it as a ministry, did it for free. And we want to promote them a little bit. We want to tell you about them and his ministry of cameras, and he can do commercials, he can do editing, he can show you how to do shows. And so we got a 3-minute clip where he sat in Doc's chair here and I interviewed him with his t-shirt on, and I want because I think there's some of you out there watching that maybe could use him and what his business can do for you. So we wanted to, because he's been so good to us, we wanted to share his knowledge with you. So take just take a minute and sit back and watch this 3-minute clip, and we'll be right back with Doc. Hey everybody, I got a special guest here I want to tell you about. You know how we're always talking about we don't know what we're doing here in the studio, and we don't, and we've had some technical issues. We got a new friend here. We got Chris Goodwin and his wife behind there. She wouldn't come on the camera, but she's back there with my wife behind the camera. And you guys came all the way from Shepherd's, Kentucky to help us out. And you have a new business that you have started where you do this video stuff and you do commercials for people and whatnot. Tell them a little bit about that.
Well, it's not like super new, but it is relatively new. So I help businesses to survive and thrive in just this video-centric era. So whether that's anything from a real fast, like on the Facebook, like dancing around, whatever, all the way up to a longer kind of commercial format, real estate, drone stuff.
And I saw one of your clips that you did, and a lady sitting behind a desk, and the video would shift to these different outside things, and it was first class. It was like a commercial on television. And so that's what you do. You came here and helped us. You guys spent about 7 hours here in our studio.
Long time.
And you guys did this as a ministry to help us.
Yes.
I think you felt sorry for us. I don't know, but you knew Dr. Hiltibidal a little bit, and you guys were friends with him. And I just wanted my audience to know what you guys had done for us. Out of the goodness of your heart. I mean, we bought you a meal, but other than that, you wouldn't take no money. And you guys have been a tremendous help. And I thought it'd be good to just promote what you're doing, because somebody in our audience could use you. So how do they get a hold of you if they're interested in maybe they have a business and they'd like to do a 2-minute commercial spot or something like that?
Yeah, they can always go on to chrisdruinvideo.com, and you can see all my work, a lot of my work on there, and just keep scrolling, and there's actually a contact form on there, and you just fill that out and it comes right
All
to
right,
me.
so if they go to chrisdruinvideo.com, they can get information, they can get your email, all that stuff to where
Whatever
they can get a hold
need
of
to
you.
get a hold of me.
All right, well, thanks, my brother, for all you've done for us. And folks, get a hold of this fella if you think he can help you. And I believe you'd really be thankful. I think you'd be very happy with his work. He's sure been a big help to us. Thank you, Brother Chris, and your wife back there, Miss Tiffany. We're so glad for both of you coming here to help us. And oh my goodness, we were pulling wires out. No, it was unbelievable. And I bet my audience is going to say, boy, we're sure glad he helped you guys out.
It was a good day.
All right. Well, I just wanted to do that. So thank everybody for watching. All right. That's great. And, man, what a great couple they are, Doc.
They're sweet, sweet kids. Great help.
Yeah.
They've helped me on a lot of projects.
Yeah, and they're going to help us some more. Yes. They may not know it yet, but they're going to help us some more. So we're talking about DNA and altering biological things and DNA of animals and plants, and
it's all over.
And what you're saying is you're not talking about angels mixing with men and changing the DNA. You're using this in a spiritual sense.
I'm talking about when you alter the DNA of the Bible, you're going to alter the kind of gospel that's preached. You're going to end up down the road with a social gospel that has no power of God unto salvation.
So we got 5 minutes left.
Yep.
I think there were 3 things that you said are being, the DNA is being changed,
yes,
which results in a different outcome, which puts us where we are now. So let's hit, you're mentioning one, maybe the most important one.
Yes.
So what do you mean by that, changing the Bible?
Well, the Bible talks about, the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. We have to war against those things. And so I think, number one, that is always the first thing that is in the process of changing in the church is the music.
Yeah.
Music's always that because I think that's something that's the lust, of life that we think about, and it affects us in many ways. And a lot of the music may not be bad in its content, but a lot of it's shifted where it has its emphasis on the beat.
Sensuous.
It's got a little, and it affects the body rather than letting the message affect the heart and the mind. So the first thing is that. Then the second thing to go is the modesty. We change our music, and then we change how we dress, and then it's not long until we change our manuscript.
Meaning
the Bible.
The Bible.
And so this is why there's been such a vicious attack on the King James Bible.
Now you have a chart in here. You got that verse, 1 John chapter 2, the lust of the flesh, the eyes, the pride of life.
A preacher friend of mine gave that to me. We were discussing this matter, and he gave me that. I said, write that down, preacher.
And his name, I've got right here, Pastor Brian Lott.
Yes, wonderful church, wonderful man.
And he wrote music, the lust of the flesh, modesty, or how we dress, the lust of the eyes, and then number 3, manuscript, or the Bible, the pride of life. Of course, preachers, they all going to start with the same letter
but
there.
that's the press. That's the thing.
Well, I heard that for years.
We war against it.
In Bible college even. The first thing to go bad in a church is the music. Now,
And
people
not
today
all-
don't want to hear this.
And not all music is bad. And
No,
not
of
all
course
new
not.
music is wrong or bad. But whenever they shift using and quit using the character traits of God and replace them with representation of the character traits of God with the things from nature. It's not long until not only singing about the wind and the river and the rocks and all of that, until we change the names of our churches and we lose our identity, and
Right.
and then it's on down the line. And it's not long until they're way out in apostasy, and they say, "How in the world did we ever get here?"
And you look at it. You go in a church and you think, this is no different than the nightclub. What am
Yep.
I doing here? Now we got ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I was going to read this. Could the same process of DNA altering for corn and
Yes.
plants and farming, could the same process of genetic mutating be what has led to the present day Laodicean church?
And I'm convinced it is.
And that's what you're talking about
It's a
here.
subtle, slow changing, because you don't make the final product the first time you alter the DNA. You alter the DNA, and then you fine tune this, and then you alter it again, and you till you finally get to where we have what we end up with.
You talk about the GMO of songs.
Yeah.
In other words, in other words, spiritually speaking, you're saying the songs have changed, and it's changed us as a result.
Yep.
The DNA of church music has been altered so the worldling can enjoy the worship service.
Well, it's just like that tomato. It tastes good to the palate. So a lost man can enjoy it and not even have it affect his soul.
Yeah. This is happening to the modern church as they have not rejected God's word, but they have altered God's
That's
word.
it.
And
That's what happened in the garden. The devil said, "Hath God said?" And she said, "Oh yeah, well, we're not." And then she said, "Oh, we're not even supposed to touch it." Well, God didn't say that about that. That's if the devil can get you to alter it, you're in trouble.
you know, that's what the Bible says. It says, whoso addeth or taketh away from
Yes.
the words.
Words of this book.
It's not taking the words out, but taking away the meaning of
Yeah.
the words and all that. Well, Doc, we're about out of time here.
Right.
This is great stuff. You got another little chart here. They lose their identity. They lose their vision. They lose their, this is a progression here. Mm-hmm. You lose your identity. You lose your vision. You lose your purpose. Then you compromise. Then you conform to what they compromise with and find themselves in apostasy. And
It never fails.
and I think that was from a preacher.
Yeah, a preacher friend up in Michigan.
Richard Veenkant, if I said that right. I don't, Veenkant? I'm not sure.
Veenkant.
There we go.
Yep.
Up in Michigan. So, well, Doc, good stuff. I hope you go online and get this. Go to the website, go to his bookstore, get the CD and the book. This is great stuff. And we're out of time. I hope you know the Lord is your Savior. But until next time, keep your eyes on them skies.
Amen.